And the fluoride ion replaces iodine in the thyroid and thus decreases its functioning. What's really interesting is that this month, for those female listeners out there, this month First Magazine, which is a women's health magazine, came out with an article saying, thyroid disease, reduce your exposure to fluoride. And it talks about hidden sources of fluoride. It's not just in your water, it's in your fruits, it's in your vegetables, it's in your meat, it's in your soda, it's in your beer, it's in your wine. It's in almost any liquid you can drink. It's in your tea, especially green tea, very high in fluoride. So they're talking about this issue and telling massive amounts of readers, probably a few more than I have listeners and viewers, that fluoride is perpetuating thyroid disease. So these are our risk groups for fluoride. Now let's talk about the diabetes people. Now this relates both to the national health, because diabetes is an absolute epidemic, and relates to sugar as well. Now, when we look at population studies, 20 years ago, the obesity rate in the United States was about 15% less than it is now. In Texas, for example, in 1990, the obesity rate was somewhere around 15%. Now, it's 30%. Obesity has been skyrocketing all around the country, not just in Texas. Texas has a particularly high obesity rate. But it's been increasing everywhere. Now, what could be the reason for this? Is it sugar? Maybe. But which sugar? So we've had regular sugar, sucrose, in America for many, many years. So it seems that would be unlikely, unless a new product were introduced that people were consuming a lot of. It's not soda. We've had that around for a long time. So what about aspartame, or as you may know it, NutraSweet? Aspartame came about in the 1980s and was approved for drinks like Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi. It was approved for these products in, I think, 1982, 83. Since then, cancer rates have gone up, obesity rates have gone up, and diabetes rates have gone up. Now, this is just correlational to say this, so I can't, my saying this doesn't say aspartame caused these things, but the onset of these increases does relate to the introduction of aspartame into our diets. Now, this is interesting because aspartame was introduced as a low-calorie substitute for sugar. You would think low-calorie would reduce obesity, when in fact obesity has done nothing but increase since its introduction. It says Diet Coke, it says Diet Pepsi. Isn't this supposed to be better for me than regular Coke? 2 weeks ago, I was a counselor at a summer camp, and we had a question. We asked our campers who were in high school, which is better for you, regular Coke or Diet Coke? Almost all of them said regular Coke. Students know, and most people know today, that the regular soda is actually better for them than the diet soda. So how on earth is there a market for diet soda when many consumers know that the diet is actually worse for them? Now I want to ask you, how is the diet worse? How is the low-calorie substitute? How is aspartame? How is that worse than sucrose? Do you know what the best way to reduce population is? No, China would say it's demanding that you only have one child. The rest of the world has found out that the best way to do it is educating women. When women are educated, they are much less likely to procreate early in life. Don't procreate early in life, it reduces the amount of total children that you can or would choose to have. So what happens when you, the consumer of aspartame, swallow a sugar that your body thinks is sugar, but in reality it's not? So let's walk through the process. You drink a diet soda. Your tongue tastes sweetness. Now this communicates to your brain that you're about to intake sugar. You're going to intake calories. So your brain then communicates with your pancreas and says, release insulin. Insulin goes through your body and basically tells your cells, prepare to intake calories. Prepare to intake sugar. Get ready. It's coming. So aspartame hits your stomach and then goes to your intestine. By this time, your cells in your body are starving. They are pumped up. They are ready to intake the food that you just swallowed. The problem is, you didn't really swallow food. You swallowed a chemical. You swallowed an artificial sugar substitute. And though your tongue tasted it as sugar, your intestines and your cells know that it is not sugar. So as a result, they can't use it. So it provides no energy with them. Now your cells are really starved. Imagine if you have a little brother, a little sister who's hungry. And then you say, okay, little Billy, little Jane, don't you worry. I'm going to order pizza. It's going to come really soon. But then the pizza never comes. So what happens when the pizza doesn't come? They're really hungry then. They're just starving. They're like, man, I was getting all ready for the pizza. That's what you're doing to your cells when you drink aspartame. So your cells, now that your body has processed the Diet Coke, your cells are now really starving for real sugar. So what happens the next time you eat? You actually eat more than you would have had you not consumed that diet drink. Yes, consuming aspartame causes you to eat more your subsequent meals. In 2005, researchers at the University of Texas, San Antonio, found that consuming aspartame was actually related to diabetes. Those that consumed diet drinks versus regular drinks were more likely to become diabetic in this study. Isn't that just shocking? Isn't that just terrible? There's a beverage out there that is potentially causing diabetes. If we're going to discuss socialized medicine, if we're going to discuss national health care, or even state health care, which we currently have in Texas, which Massachusetts has to a much bigger extent, if we're going to discuss government health care, should we allow products on the market that cause ill health? Is that good policy? Does that make any sense? In Canada, lawsuits were filed against the tobacco companies for having a dangerous, poisonous product. Canada has socialized medicine. In Canada, it is immoral for you to smoke a cigarette. Why? Because I'm paying for your health care. It's immoral for you to be obese, for you to choose bad food, for you to not exercise, and for you to consume cigarettes or drugs, any of those things. It's immoral for you to do that because I'm paying the bill, me and everybody else. Now the question is, number one, do we want that in America? Do we want there to be a moral price tag on our freedom of choice as far as what we put into our body? I don't like cigarettes. I think cigarettes are horrible, and I think cigarette companies are absolutely dangerous to society. On the other hand, I fully support freedom of choice. Now we know how dangerous cigarettes are. No one smokes a cigarette thinking that it's okay for them or good for them like 50 years ago. And the smoking population has continued to decrease, primarily because of education. So if someone now chooses to smoke a cigarette, they're not smoking it because they think that it's okay. They're choosing to do it knowing that it's bad for them. I fully support the right of individuals to choose what they do with their body and what they put into their body, especially when it only affects them. If we have socialized medicine in this country, if we have government-sponsored health care that's paid for by you and I, the taxpayer, I don't like the idea of people smoking cigarettes. I don't like the people of drinking too much alcohol. I don't like the idea of people driving motorcycles without helmets. But it is their right to do so. So if we go down this track of having the government, being you, the taxpayer, pay for the health care of others, then we're going to get into this whole realm of morality regarding personal behavior. The government was not created to regulate personal behavior. That is what our families are for, our spouses, our churches, our schools, our friends, our colleagues. These are the people that should influence our personal behavior, not the government. Similarly, I believe people have the right to put any substance into their body that they want to, as long as it's not harming others. So marijuana, for example, which has shown to have lots of medical benefits, I believe people have a right to use. Now, I wish government did provide more information about the food we eat. We have what are called genetically modified foods right now. And these GMOs, we have no idea what the effect is. Every soybean we eat in the United States is genetically modified to be resistant to pesticides, specifically Raid. So what happens is they have these huge soybean fields and they just spray them with Raid, kills all the weeds except the soybean. What are the effects of the soybean of inserting this gene? And what are the effects on us, who we've evolved over hundreds of thousands and millions of years to consume what's on Earth? And when you start messing with the seeds, start messing with the genetic structure of what we consume, our bodies are not evolved to handle that. So what's going to happen? I don't know. And I don't know if it's the government's job to say, hey, don't eat that. In fact, it's not their job to say that. But we need, as consumers, to be aware of what we are consuming. So if I buy a product and it has genetically modified foods in it, I should know that. That shouldn't be something they can just slip in there. The government needs to come out and say the problems with aspartame. It's related to headaches. There are studies that show that it's related to cancer. Many studies that show it's related to cancer. Animals have died because of aspartame consumption. One of the first studies of aspartame was a monkey study. You had 6 monkeys. They were fed aspartame in milk. Now, of these 7 monkeys. Of these 7 monkeys, 1 died and 5 had grand mal seizures. Now, grand mal seizures are sudden onset and severe seizing. They had grand mal seizures. That was one of the first aspartame studies. So we as a society, we as consumers, we need to know what is in our food and what dangers are associated with it. And for a product like aspartame to market itself as being healthy, as being low in calorie, when in reality its consumption promotes our food consumption. If we drink it, we eat more. If we drink it, we're more likely to develop diabetes. We're more likely to be obese. And these are health epidemics in the United States. It's currently estimated that 1/4 or 1/3 of children today will develop type 2 diabetes at some time in their life. 1/3! Can you imagine 1/3 of the workforce who's going to be paying into Social Security and Medicare so that we can have those government benefits? I don't think that's going to happen. It's not going to last that long. But that's the system that's set up right now. We're expecting this generation below us to be healthy enough to work, and to work for a long time, and to work effectively. When 1/3 of them have diabetes, what do you think the consequence of that is? It's going to be shorter work hours. It's going to be, man, they need more medical care. Who's paying for that medical care? Probably us. Who's paying for their medicine? My goodness, what are we getting ourselves into by allowing ourselves to consume these dangerous products with no thought as to the long-term effects of this and refusing to educate the public on it? The government has refused to label genetically modified foods. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has received over 10,000 complaints on aspartame. It's the most complained about drug or food additive in history. And yet it's still on the market with no warnings. And in fact, sometimes you really have to look for it. It's not written huge on the package, contains aspartame. You got to look under the fine print. So I ask you, what are we getting ourselves into when the government that is there supposedly to protect the consumer from danger, from dangerous things in our environment, is allowing these companies, specifically Monsanto, to create genetically modified foods? We have no idea what the consequence is. And for companies to create substances like aspartame, which are marketed as healthy, but in reality cause obesity and diabetes, which are 2 huge problems in this nation right now. We got to think about where we're headed and what we can do to rectify this and get back on the right path. And as I said at the beginning of the hour, the answer is sugar. The answer is xylitol. Xylitol has half the calories of regular sugar, and it's good for your teeth. You want a public health benefit? How about no cavities and fewer calories ingested? That'll be great for the obese and low-income families who can't afford dental care. But does the American Dental Association support it? No. Does the Center for Disease Control support it? No. Does the American federal government support it? Yes. Yes, they do. And they do it covertly. They give xylitol gum to soldiers in combat after meals. This is to protect their teeth. So, some people know about it in the government, but the public needs to know about it. So I ask you, if this is something you're passionate about, if this sounds like something to be a good idea for the public to know about, do your own research on xylitol and share it with others, and let them know that the answer to obesity, the answer to diabetes, and the answer to cavities is xylitol.